Hello, everybody, and this is Just for Sport for your viewing and betting pleasure. Of course, Jumoke Davis here for the Props Network. I appreciate everyone that is watching live right now on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook on the Props Network channels or listening on a podcast. Thank you very much for the support. Another great show for you today. A lot to get into, and I normally on Thursday, my usual thing is my Fantastic Four, but there's so many good games. It's hard for me to pick 4 NFL games that I want to dive into, but I'm going to pick 4. And we're also going to talk about the NFL futures, who, as I was looking at these tight races, and not all division matchups this weekend, but we got Patriots, Chargers, Patriots 6-6. Are they, making a turn for the better? Who knows? I mean, right now, if they run the table, they could finish the season 2-6. And who would have thought that? So we're going to talk about NFL futures and division winners. Vikings, Bucks, that's another good game. Playoffs are at stake here. Also, we got Bo knows college football and basketball. We're going to talk about number 9 UGA at number 25 Mizzou, ACC matchup between, we'll talk Pitt and Georgia Tech, but realistically, the matchup that, has any implications when it comes to the ACC being represented, the BCS championship comes down to, one of those games is number 17 UNC, at number 10 Miami. So we'll talk about that. As we mentioned last week, we'll talk about Navy, Army, and the Big Ten changing their rules for Ohio State. Then as we shift to college basketball, I stayed up late, and watched a great finish by my University of Pittsburgh Panthers beating the Northwestern Wildcats. Didn't lead all game until the last 30 seconds of the game. Oh, it was beautiful. And Coach K, Duke's coach Mike Krzyzewski, wondering if we should kind of postpone college basketball. So we'll talk about that as well with Bo. And the NBA, I'm going to give my predictions for what teams I think will make the tournament, will make the playoffs in the East and West of the NBA. I've got my 8 picks plus a couple of bubble teams that we'll talk about their futures on DraftKings.com. And, of course, family time. This time is just going to be my dad, but I love my dad. And he is going to come on, and we're going to be talking League recap, Manchester United versus Manchester City, the Manchester Derby, Everton, Chelsea, and the MLS Cup final between Columbus Crew and the Seattle Sounders. And I'm going to finish with Devil's Advocate, talking about the U.S. women's national team in soccer. Sports you don't care about, I don't know if you'll care about this one, but we'll talk about it. And then we got trivia coming up and maybe a little story time. So we got a packed show. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching us live. And, of course, you can certainly join in the conversation, join the chat, and we can talk. Or I'll do the talking, and you can listen on, type away. Have the keyboard courage you need to join the chat with me, and we can talk. We can talk that way. All right, NFL futures. So as I was looking at the matchups for today, or this weekend, and the matchup tonight, I was noticing, as we all are, come on, it's not like anything nobody else noticed, but I love this time of the season where, the standings, each game is crucial. In the NFC West, the Seahawks and Rams are only 2 games up on the Cardinals, and the Cardinals play at the Giants, and the Giants are tied with the Washington football team in first place in the NFC East. So that's a tight race for both of them. Packers, not so much. They're 9-3, and the Vikings are 6-6. But the Vikings play the Bucks, and the Bucks are 7-5. So both of them are looking at their playoff seeding as who can win their division. Then we've got Bills and Dolphins. The Bills are 9-3. Dolphins are a game behind them, and the Patriots are 6-6, 2 games behind them. And the Chiefs play at the Dolphins. The Steelers play at the Bills. The Bills and Dolphins have to win because, of course, if the Patriots win at the Chargers and they're 7-6 and the Dolphins are 8-5 and the Bills end up 9-4, hello, watch out. Patriots have won 2 in a row. Tennessee and Colts are both tied at 8-4. The Browns, the Steelers lost a game. They're 11-1, and the Browns are 9-3, 2 games back. The Ravens are 4 games back, so I know that's a little tougher, but the Ravens have an easier schedule, so there's a chance they have a higher probability of making the playoffs than the Browns, with the Browns being 2 games away. If the Steelers don't win at the Bills and they are a game behind, the Browns have won 4 in a row. Again, there you go. Another game where you're like, woo. This is crucial. And the Colts play at the Raiders. The Raiders are 7-5. The Colts are 8-4. The playoff picture, it's coming into view, but it's a lot more difficult. So what I wanted to look at is going to DraftKings and the NFL futures and looking at the division winners. Who's going to win the divisions? Now, we start with I'm looking at the tough matchup. The divisions where it's close enough where every game matters. And right now, that is the NFC East, where the Giants and Washington are both 5-7. 5-7. The Giants are minus 143 to win the NFC East. And the Washington football team are looking on the outside at plus 140. And that's a tough one. Obviously, look, not that you didn't know this if you haven't been listening to the show, but of course I am a Washington football team fan. But I am strictly looking at the opponents here. And I see a Giants team that's got a tough road ahead of them. A very, very, very tough road ahead of them. When you look at their schedule, now they played well. You got the Cardinals on Sunday that are trying to get into the playoffs after the Giants flew all the way to Seattle and crushed them. I mean, defensively, just shut them down. They won 17-12. But you got the Cardinals at home, which could be a hiccup game if you're, riding high because you beat Seattle and not really realizing that the Cardinals are a hungry team too. Then you've got the Browns, which are fighting for their playoff life, but again, in New York City. So MetLife Stadium will be bumping the next 2 weekends. Then you play at the Ravens, and you end the season against the Cowboys. And the Cowboys would love probably nothing more than to knock the Giants out of the playoffs. Probably more so than Washington football team. But the Washington football team's already won both games against said Cowboys. So then we look at the Washington football team. They play at the 49ers this weekend. Then they play the Seahawks at home. Last Seahawks game I remember was a playoff game when RG3 got hurt. Oh boy, that was rough. That's the last game I remember. That was pretty exciting. But they play the Seahawks in Washington. Then they end the season against the Panthers at home. I see 2 teams, one team in the Seahawks that, no game is a gimme. No game would I ever say that the Seattle Seahawks are going to give away a game. But I could see a team that, maybe if they win this weekend, maybe, the Washington football team beat the Steelers. They saw what the Giants did to the Seahawks. They can get that win. And then they end the season against, right now they are 4-8 Carolina Panthers. That should be a win. Ron Rivera going against his former team to end the season. So in this, I'm taking the Washington football team at plus 140 to win the NFC East. How crazy would that be? How crazy would that be considering where this team started, where the season started for the NFC East as a whole, saying it's the worst division, and not that it's any better right now. But I still feel like, you know what? I could see a scenario where the Washington football team wins the NFC East. So then I go to the AFC East. We've got the Buffalo Bills at minus 1,115, the Dolphins at plus 700, and the Patriots at plus 2,000. Why not just take the Patriots? If you can get it at plus 2,000, the Bills are playing the Steelers. If they lose that game and the Patriots are a game out, and you can get the Patriots, who still have Bill Belichick, and Cam Newton seems to be, maybe they're playing better. How about that? All three of these teams have won 2 in a row. So let's see if they, can all three win again. But I might take the Patriots with that bet. Next one, the AFC South, we've got the Titans and Colts, Indianapolis Colts both at 8-4. Both at 8-4. You can get the Titans at minus 200 or the Colts at plus 150. That's a little bit of a tighter race. The Colts play at the Raiders versus the Texans and then at the Steelers. To me, that's a tough schedule. Because even the Texans should not be as bad as they are this year, and they came within a fumble away from winning last week. I think that's a tough schedule. The Titans are, to me, heading in the wrong direction. But their schedule is easier. They play at the Jaguars versus the Lions, and then they play at the Packers. So if they can right the ship in many ways, I think I'm going to stick with the Titans at minus 200. So I'm taking the Titans at minus 200. I'm going to take a flyer on the Patriots at plus 2,000 because they're breathing on the necks of the Dolphins and Bills. And I think this weekend will be key for both of those teams. And I think the Chiefs beat the Dolphins in Miami. Now, I do think I think the Bills can beat the Steelers. But the Steelers are a very formidable opponent. Now, if you want to take another flyer, you could try the Browns at plus 1,200, although I don't see the Steelers losing many more and opening the window any more than it is for the Browns. But if the Bills beat the Steelers, as I said, the Browns are a game behind. So if you want to take another flyer, take one on the Browns at plus 1,200. At plus 1,200. Rams, Seahawks are both tied as well in the NFC West. You can get the Rams at minus 155 or the Seahawks at plus 125. Now, I look at this schedule, and you got the Jets. That's a win for the Seahawks. Then, as I mentioned, you got at the football team. Washington has a formidable defense, and we saw what the Giants defense did to Seattle. If Washington can do that too, man, that's a tough one. But the NFL, you got to hand it to the people who schedule these games in pretty much all sports. Basketball does a good job of it. Baseball and football, final game of the year versus the Rams. Both of these teams very well may be tied and playing each other. And maybe that could determine who's going to win the NFC West. So you got the Rams at minus 155 and the Seahawks at plus 125. If I look at that schedule, and then I'm looking at the Rams, both teams are 8-4. The Rams play the Patriots this weekend, then the Jets, and at the Seahawks. We'll get into my picks. next. But that's a tough one. Those are some good games. Good games. All right. Now let's go with my Fantastic Four. So my Fantastic Four that I'm choosing are Patriots at Chargers, Vikings at Buccaneers, Cardinals at Giants, and Washington at 49ers. I picked those games because I think the Chiefs beat the Dolphins easily. Colts Raiders is a good one. But I like these matchups for what's at stake for the teams. And Steelers at Bills. Steelers, they have a better chance of winning. Okay, so Patriots at the Chargers. At the Rams. No, I said Chargers. My apologies. This game is tough for me to decide on in many ways because I'm wondering what Patriots team is going to show up. That's the key for me. The Patriots offense is ranked 22nd. The Rams offense is ranked 3rd. And the Rams defense is ranked 2nd. I'm looking at this game and everything except for the rushing game lends itself to say, oh, this is an easy one. You go with the Rams to win and cover. You go with the Rams to win and cover. But it's also Bill Belichick, right? I mean, you can't discredit Bill Belichick. I don't know if you want to. The Rams are favored at -4.5. The over-under is 44. You can get that -4.5 at -110 on DraftKings. And you have the over-under at 44. Money line, Patriots +193. Rams -225. Can also get that money line New England at +180. But I think in this game, it's hard not to think about Bill Belichick having something up his sleeve. Jared Goff has a 46.1 passer rating this season when under pressure. He's getting better, but against the Patriots and what Bill Belichick will concoct as an evil genius, I just don't know. The Patriots have won 4 of their last 5 games. They've committed the fewest penalties this season. The Rams offense and defense, the Rams offense is high-powered, averaging 28.3 points per game. That is the highest under the Sean McVay era by any head coach with a minimum of 50 games. But Cam Newton, lowest winning percentage and passer rating of any New England quarterback since Tom Brady. I don't know if that stat matters. But he certainly isn't Tom Brady is what I want to get at. And that game is tonight on Fox at 8:20. In my mind, when I look at these two teams, the Patriots are 10-5 against the spread when they've been spotted this many points. I believe that their defense will come to play against the Rams here. I think the travel West Coast hurts the Patriots. Jared Goff, they had a 38-28 win in Arizona. I believe that in this scenario, taking everything into account, the total has gone under in 7 of LA's last 9 games. New England 6-0 straight up, 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games against LA. In the end, I'm going to take the Rams to win. But I don't know. I like the Patriots at plus 4.5. I don't see them blowing out the Patriots. I'll take the Patriots and the points, plus 4.5. And I'll take the under at 44. I'll take the under at 44. That's where I'm going. All right, next game. Vikings at the Buccaneers. We've got the 6-6 Minnesota Vikings against the 7-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which, by the way, let's also not forget, no one ever expected it to only be a game in the Brady-Belichick standings, right? New England 6-6, 1 game behind the Buccaneers. That's not good. We've got the Vikings in the 4th-ranked offense against the 18th-ranked offense in the Buccaneers. The 7th-ranked defense in the Buccaneers against the 23rd-ranked defense in the Vikings. This is, when you consider how poorly the Buccaneers have played at home, I am leaning towards the offense of the Vikings. They're playing at 1 o'clock in Raymond James Stadium. The Buccaneers have had a bye week to try to prepare for Minnesota. Minnesota has eked out wins. They haven't exactly been stellar in my mind. But they are winning. That's the bottom line. They are winning. And that's a good thing for Vikings fans. I don't expect Dalvin Cook to have a good game. So that means that you're going to need Justin Jefferson, who's been great as a young rising star, and Adam Thielen, and of course Kirk Cousins. They're going to have to play well. 3 losses in 4 games for Tampa. They're 3-3 straight up and against the spread heading into this game. And the defense is allowing just under 30 points per game, which doesn't bode well for Brady to think, okay, we can have a mediocre game. No, they're going to need everybody on their offense needs to be clicking. That's the bottom line. Brady's going to be spreading the ball around to Gronk, Evans, Antonio Brown. He's going to need everybody to step up. He's going to need everybody to step up. Kirk Cousins has 15 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions since week 8. Tom Brady's 14-4 in his career following a bye week, but this is the first one with the Bucs, so that's kind of different. The Vikings are one of 3 teams with 5+ wins and 27 points per game since week 8. Kansas City and New Orleans are the other 2. The Buccaneers have not allowed a 100-yard rusher since week 9, and the Vikings have not allowed a 100-yard receiver since week 7. So as I'm looking at this game, we've got the Vikings at -6.5, the over-under at 51.5. The Buccaneers at -6.5. Excuse me if I said Vikings. I think this game will be closer. So I'm taking the Vikings at +6.5. I think we end up with like a field goal difference coming down to the last second. And I'm going to take the over at 51.5. That's what I'm taking. Next game, we've got the Cardinals at the Giants. Cardinals are favorite at 1.5 at -110. Over under at 45. Woo, that's a tight game. The 6-6 Cardinals against the 5-7 Giants. See how I'm picking these games where not only they may not be divisional games, but like their records are so close. I'm going to be glued to the red zone because there's a lot to watch. A lot to watch. The Cardinals offense is ranked 6th. The Giants offense is ranked 31st. But their defense is ranked 10th. And the Cardinals defense is ranked 18th. Boy, that's a tough one. 1.5. The Cardinals have not played great. This game is at 1 p.m. on Fox. The Giants have allowed fewer than 20 points in 3 straight games, so their defense is playing well. Kyler Murray is 11-5 in his career in games with 6+ carries. 0-11-1 with 5 or fewer carries. This game is an easy game for me to pick. And I shouldn't, I'm sure, as soon as I said, I'm like, what are you talking about? But the thing for me is the way that the Giants were able to stifle the Seahawks last week. I think they will do the same this week. I will take the Giants at +1.5. I will take the under at 45. And my final game is a Washington football team at the 49ers. The 49ers are favored at -3.5, over under at 43.5. You've got 2 5-7 teams. This could be it. This could be it. Whoever loses this game, you know, especially if the Giants win and the Washington football team loses, like this could be that game that you really, really needed. We've got the Washington football team and a 26th ranked offense and a 14th ranked offense in the 49ers, but 2 stellar defenses. Washington's ranked 4th. 49ers are ranked 6th. And the weird thing is, everybody, you know, all of my friends and family and buddies were like jumping up for joy that the Washington football team beat the Steelers. And I was like, slow your roll. It wasn't the Super Bowl. It was a game. It was a game. And a game where, frankly, the Steelers were one completion away from sealing a victory. But I digress. Bottom line is Washington won, and I'm happy because they're still in first place. You got to love that when your home team is in first place. My wife's home team's in first place too. The key with Washington is we don't know about Antonio Gibson. He was banged up in the Steelers game. Let's see what's going to happen with him. He had just 2 carries in that Washington win over the Steelers. Smith has played, in my mind, brilliantly. Comeback player of the year, hands down, considering, you know, where he was before. But Gibson questionable with the turf toe. Alex Smith, the game is on your shoulders. Going up against Kyle Shanahan, a former Washington football team offensive coordinator, that I'm sure in many ways felt like he could and should be the head coach of the Washington football team, but it wasn't meant to be. There are injuries on the 49ers as well with Garoppolo and Kittle. I think this game could go either way. Boy. Ooh. Remember, San Francisco is playing in Arizona, so it's not really a home game for the 49ers. Nick Mullins as the QB for the 49ers is going to be playing a formidable defense with Chase Young. I'm leaning toward the Washington football team here. Coming off of that win against the Steelers, I think their confidence is riding high. I think defense can carry them. Terry McLaurin is a really dynamic wide receiver. I'm going to take Washington at plus 3.5. I'll take those points. And I will also take the under at 43.5. And there you go. They are my NFL Fantastic Four. I just want to quickly say, I think Chiefs will beat the Dolphins. I think Raiders beat the Colts. I think Bills beat the Steelers. And they're all of my picks. All right, when we come back, we are going to be talking college football, college basketball. We got some picks for you in some games, but we also have some stories. My thoughts on Coach K's, him saying maybe we need to reevaluate the college basketball season, and also if Ohio State, if the Big Ten should have been over backwards for them. So we'll discuss that on the other side. But first, are you located in a state with legal online sports betting? Don't make a bet this season before you visit thepropsnetwork.com. Thepropsnetwork.com has you covered with free bets and special bonus deals from all the top U.S. online sportsbook. Get $30 in free bets and up to a $600 risk-free bet at Unibet, or you could claim up to a $1,000 signing bonus bundle from DraftKings Sportsbook, or try PointsBet Sportsbook with 4 risk-free bets totaling up to $1,000 using promo code BONUSPROPS. That's 4 risk-free bets. The Props Network is also the only betting news sites with live NFL odds for every game. That's the only betting news site. So you can shop the comps and know you are getting the biggest payout possible before you lock in your bet. Do your bankroll a favor and check out thepropsnetwork.com. You must be 21 or over to bet online. Do you or someone you know have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER today. So we're bringing in Bo because we got some college football to talk. Hi, Bo. How you doing?
Doing well.
Ready? You doing all right?
Yeah.
Doing well.
Enjoying
Hanging
a
in
little
there.
downtime here.
A little downtime. I'm enjoying sport. Just a little bit. All right, let's first talk about Pittsburgh at Georgia Tech. We've got the Pittsburgh Panthers at 5-5, 3-6-1 against the spread. The Yellow Jackets 3-6, 4-5 against the spread. In my mind, of course, I would almost always say I'm rooting for Pittsburgh. I mean, how could I not? But they are playing down at Bobby Dodd Stadium. Do you think that in any way whatsoever that Georgia Tech has a chance? They're at +7, over under 54.5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be somewhat competitive, right? I don't think this is going to be an absolute walk in the park for Pitt. 7-point favorites here, full touchdown. Georgia Tech is an interesting team to me. I think they looked a little bit better earlier in the year, second year under Jeff Collins, who's I think was a great hire for them a few years ago. But, I think that they rely a little bit too much on the run game for me. And when you're matching up with a Pitt team, even without, star defensive end Rashad Weaver, who's going to take the rest of the season off to prepare for the draft, I think that the rest of that defensive front and the rest of that defense is still they excel against the run, right? That's where they make their money. That's where they make their bread. And so I think, Georgia Tech relying so much, they average something close to 200 rushing yards per game. That's where the Georgia Tech offense lives and dies. And I think in this case, it's not a great, matchup on paper for Tech's offense.
The offenses, Pittsburgh is scoring 28 points per game, just over 28, and Georgia Tech is at 24. I just feel like it's an easy game to say Pitt will win and cover. I think they're the better team, and I'm also going to take the under. What do you think?
Yeah, they're for sure the better team. I don't think many people are going to argue about that. They also do kind of have something to play for this late in the season, which I think is a rarity this year. They're trying to get to 6-5. Given how many expectations they had for themselves, they had outside the program as well. I think that kind of chip of at least trying to get to over 500 is still there, and still trying to quiet some of the chatter that's been going around this team. Georgia Tech, obviously, I don't think has as much motivation to really come out, but they're always trying to improve. They're always trying to get better. Like I said, in the second year under their head coach, 54.5, I think, is an interesting number. I think I probably see Georgia Tech covering 7. Pitt has been explosive at some points this season. Basically in 2 or 3 games. You look at that last ACC home game for the Panthers when they, just blew out Virginia Tech. And they looked decent against Clemson. I don't think the scoreline really indicated how close that game was at some points, just because of the 3 first quarter interceptions and Clemson obviously scoring 31 in that quarter. But I think that that explosiveness isn't going to travel well. 54.5, that's an interesting number. I would probably lean towards, I think it's that's really an intriguing number, because I don't see Georgia Tech scoring more than 20. And so I just said that they're going to cover, right? So I kind of have to go under here, because that would make it like a 27-20-ish game, which is under 54.5. But I don't know. I think it really could end up either way. I'm not on solid footing here.
It's tough. When Georgia Tech has won outside of the first game against FSU, they won 16-13. In their wins, they've scored 46 points and 56 points.
Yeah.
When they win, they score a lot of points in my mind. Now, Granted, it's been a large span in between, but this also was a postponed game that they are in some ways making up. It's tonight at 7:00.
Thursday night action.
No Thursday night action. Their last game they lost at NC State 23-13. So maybe you could kind of look at that game and say, okay, well, they're not going to bounce back. They're going to have another loss. But then, of course, you look at Pitt and they just lost to Clemson 52-17 a couple weeks ago. But, I mean, they've got some time to prepare for this game that I feel like they are the better team. And even in their losses, unlike Georgia Tech, you look at Pitt's losses, one game they scored 29, next one they scored 31. 19 points isn't bad, still in the loss, but you get 19. They did only score 3 points against Notre Dame, but I think
without
even
their starting quarterback.
Yes, without, so I think that they can put up more points. Even if they are not the favorite, they still have been in games competitively compared to Georgia Tech. So I'm picking Pitt. I'm taking the over too.
All right.
Okay. Next game up, we've got number 9, the Georgia Bulldogs at the Missouri Tigers. Woo! This should be fun. We've got Georgia at minus 13.5, over under 54.5. What are your early thoughts on the game?
My early thoughts on the game are, how is Georgia still at number 9? I mean, I think it's I know we're going to get into this a little bit later, but I think it's an absolute travesty that Indiana, a one-loss Indiana whose only loss is to a playoff-bound Ohio State, that their a one touchdown loss to Ohio State keeps them 3 spots below a 2-loss Georgia team that got blown out by Alabama. That they lost to, I'm trying to remember, Florida, I think, again in another big loss. I don't know how Georgia is still ahead of Indiana in the rankings. Nonetheless, 3 spots ahead of Indiana in the rankings. And Mizzou, they've just kind of come out of nowhere. I guess it's their second year with Eli Drinkwitz, another of those, former Appalachian State head coaches, him and Scott Satterfield down at Louisville, part of that rotating chain. I think they had something like 3 coaches in 3 years just because everybody kept getting hired away. But Georgia is still, obviously still very talented. I think they've had a little bit of issues kind of getting their offense set because they've been kind of bouncing around with the quarterback. They started with Stetson Bennett. They went to the USC transfer, JT Daniels, I think, recently, who I'm pretty sure still has the starting job. But I mean, Georgia is a defensive team, right? Kirby Smart likes to win based on his defense. And that's kind of what leads me to think that the under 2 touchdown spread leads me towards kind of leaning towards Georgia. 53.5, a little bit lower than the total we just talked about with Pittsburgh. And I would lean towards the under there. I just don't see Mizzou being able to do much against Georgia's defense. And I think that the Dogs are still trying to figure out things on offense themselves.
I would say I think Georgia's going to win, but I take Missouri to cover that 13.5, and I'll take the over at 54.5. Money line is 530, minus 530 on DraftKings, and plus 380 for Missouri. I can't argue with your thoughts on Georgia. Indiana should be ranked higher, and Missouri has come out of nowhere. Starting the season with 2 losses against Alabama and Tennessee, their last 3 wins, 3 wins in a row. And this is another postponed game as well. So that'll be quite interesting. A good matchup, but I think Missouri will cover. Number 17, UNC at Miami.
This is good. This is going to be the best game of the weekend.
You think
Besides
so?
Army Navy. Besides Army Navy.
Besides
Army Navy, right? I was talking about this with one of my buddies. You like it more, right? When Army Navy, it's like just Army Navy, right? It's this kind of weird weekend where it's in between, the end of the regular season and what normally is championship weekend. They're playing it at West Point this year, I think. First time it's been off a neutral site in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was talking with my friend. You kind of miss the mystique of Army Navy when you have other games on the weekend. You might get a little bit distracted, but going back to UNC Miami, this is a really good game in the ACC. Miami's still trying to prove that they should have a shot at the ACC title game. I'm pretty sure they're basically completely out of it by now, given that Clemson had no problems with both Pitt and Virginia Tech. I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed that it's Clemson Notre Dame rematch in the title game in Charlotte next weekend. Okay. But because Clemson and Notre Dame had their final 2 games canceled just so make sure that everything was good there. But this is still a good game, right? 2 of the basically the next best 2. This is like the runners up game in the ACC, so to say. You have 2 top 20 teams in UNC and Miami. Mac Brown really trying to prove the job he's doing down in Chapel Hill, and compared to Manny Diaz, who's trying to prove, look, everybody had doubts about us all year long, and we've done nothing but come out and win to basically every team except Clemson, as far as I remember. And so they're trying to just prove that, look, we should be on the very cusp. Like, we're not in the championship game this year. We get it. Notre Dame's in. But in a normal year, look, that's us playing down in Charlotte and not the Irish. And so I think both of these teams do have a lot to prove. Talked about that a little bit with Pitt this late in the season. That can be hard. That can be a challenge for teams. I think it's not going to be an issue for either of these squads this week. I
You got
really like
North Carolina at +3.
Yeah.
Over under a 67.5.
So I'm actually going to take the points here. I'm going to take UNC and the points on the road. Like I said, I've been one of those doubters of Miami. I thought if Pitt had Kenny Pickett down in Coral Gables, they would have won. I've been surprised that Miami has been able to make it this long. I think Rhett Lashley and De'Aaron King have done a great job kind of revitalizing that offense from where they were last year. But I'm just still not sold on the Hurricanes as a true title contender. UNC hasn't been as good, I think, as many people had them to be this year. I mean, at one point they were like top 4, top 5 in the country before losing to Florida State. They didn't keep it as close against Notre Dame as many people thought they would, but I think they really come out trying to prove that they are that high tier, that championship contender in the ACC, and they want to go put a hurting to Miami. 67.5. That's a big number in the total.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Over. I'm taking it.
Over? What?
I'm taking it. I'm not backing down.
Wow.
Both of these teams have really good offenses. I think Miami's and decent defenses too. You can't, sleep on, Chaz Surratt, the former quarterback at linebacker for the Heels, or, anybody across that very talented Miami defensive squad. But, I think that at the end of the day, this is going to be an offensive shootout. So I'm going to take 67.5 and go over.
I'm going to go against the grain.
All right.
I think Miami, they've won 5 in a row, had one game postponed with Georgia Tech. They're playing at home. They're 6-3 against the spread. North Carolina's 4-6 against the spread. I'm going to say Miami wins and covers, but I'm also going to take the over.
All right. There we
There's
go.
My
now
game.
we're cooking. Now we're cooking.
Yeah. Navy at Army, the Navy midshipmen against the Army Black Knights. 2 days away. You already said you're excited about the game. Army's favorite at -7, over under at 38. They're playing at West Point. What excites you most about this game?
How do we go from 67.5 to 38?
38. and I, what I wanted to see.
Football.
Yes. I wanted to see, and I don't see it on here, I need the over-under number of passes by Navy. I want to find that because I didn't see it, but I feel like we're going to be at like 5 passes, 7.
I don't know. Both Navy especially has thrown the ball a few times this year. If it's 5, I'm taking the over there. I'm risking it. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a good game. I wish I had the historical spreads up in front of me, because this has to be one of the biggest ones in the last few years. The history of this rivalry in recent years is so interesting. The big swing, because I mean, Navy was so dominant for so long, and the last 3 years it's basically been Army, and Navy's trying to play catch up, which they're not used to, right, under Ken Yamamoto. But Jeff Monken has really done a great job of making that Army team competitive and playing their best brand of football. They run the triple option and they do it so well, and I think for a lot of teams that can be hard to stop. Navy, of course, is used to it. This is their Super Bowl, right? So I think Army does win. I think Army has the better team this year, but I would say that I'm inclined to take the Navy points, just because I think that this game is going to be as close as you would expect from such a heated rivalry.
Navy has lost 4 of their last 5. Army has won 4 of their last 5. The wildest stat is, I said that I talked about Navy passing and mostly rushing. Army, they're averaging 50.2 yards per game passing. Wow. 296 on the ground per game. That's a lot. I think the game will be closer. I'm going to take the over at 38, and I'll take +7. I'll take Navy at +7 as well.
Yeah, I think the 38 number is always so much fun. I think it's hard to bet the under there just because you don't want to root for that. You don't want to root for, 3 touchdowns at the
Yeah.
most.
You're right about that. You're right about that. It should be fun. And I like you said, you may not have as many eyeballs on the game as in the past, but being at West Point will make it pretty exciting. One thing that was very exciting yesterday and even today, for some people good, some schools bad, is the Big Ten changed the rules to allow Ohio State to be able to only have 5 wins and be able to play Northwestern in the title game. What are your thoughts on, is that okay? And I'll just start off with my thoughts. I am okay with it because it was COVID. This isn't like something that just happened to Ohio State only. And they are saying, well, we're Ohio State. We're the Ohio State. We deserve special privileges. There have been way too many schools who have been affected by this, that in this season and this season alone, it's okay. I don't want to find out that the Big Ten, next year will do the same thing if we're not under these same conditions, and Ohio State or any other team for that matter only play 5 games or less. I think in this case, I am okay with it. And even then, they still need to have I think it still needs to be approved by all of the Big Ten
They did.
officials and school ADs, right? So it's not 100%.
Yeah, they did.
They did?
They
Okay.
did, yeah.
So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, right? I don't think, college football, right? The reason it's so magical, quote unquote, is because supposedly anybody can win, right? Anything can happen. If an Appalachian State can beat Michigan at the Big House, who knows what sort of magic can happen. And I think that this is really very revealing of the true nature of college football in the modern day, which I think is something that we as fans and we as, media and people involved in it at a certain degree need to come to terms with it and accept it, especially in the day and age of, the changing amateurism laws. It's just the reality. And I think it was pretty obvious it was going to happen once this Michigan-Ohio State game was canceled, right? You pretty much saw the writing on the wall the second that announcement was made that this change was going to happen. I'm okay with it for a different reason. Like I said, I don't like it, but I understand, right? I understand why it's happening. I think it makes sense why it's happening. The reason I'm okay with it is because Indiana lost to Ohio State, right? The fact of the matter is, if Ohio State had managed to simply walk out onto the field against Michigan, then they would have been in the championship game anyways. And like you said, it's because of COVID that Indiana was, slotted to that game at that point.
Yeah.
And it's a shame for Tom Allen. It's a shame for the Hoosiers, who've had such a great year. They deserve to be rewarded. I believe they will be, in some, way, in some form. But I think that this, that college football this year deserves to see Ohio State in the playoff. I think Ohio State deserves to be in the playoff. They've shown nothing to that, nothing contrary to that point yet. And so, it is what it is. Northwestern's not a walkover team. It's a good defense. Pat Fitzgerald has that team well coached, and I think it might be an interesting game for a little bit. I mean, obviously, I'll pick Ohio State to win, but welcome to 2020 in college football.
I love that Northwestern gets a chance. They had what could have been a Cinderella story if they had beat Michigan State, to really be up there in the top 4 teams competing. But now they get another opportunity, a crack at it. If they can manage to beat Ohio State, then Northwestern is the team that will represent the Big Ten. And that's a good thing. And I'm sure that'll make Michael Wilbon happy. Let's go to basketball. Were you up?
Something that will not make Michael Wilbon very happy.
Not make Michael Wilbon very happy. I take it you watched that whole
Oh,
game. Yeah.
I watched that game. I
Yeah,
watched
that
that
was
whole game.
great.
And I forget what point it was, right? But there was at some time, I can call a man up who will attest to this. I said, Pittsburgh is going to win this game
What?
because you started like 7% from the field in the first 10 minutes, and you're still only down like 11. You're still only down 9. Northwestern was not able to put that game away when they needed to. And look what happened. Look what happened.
It was amazing. I put on Twitter, pop the champagne, as I want to say, that I was just so excited to see
Popping off.
pop it off. I mean, it was just a great win. And the fact that
Should have brought
Pittsburgh,
an empty champagne
yeah,
bottle.
yeah, I actually have one behind me. The fact that Pitt, the final score was the first time that they led, right?
Yeah.
71-70. That was
It is credit to my good friend. I'm trying to pull the stat up here on my phone. Credit to my good friend Stephen Thompson, the Pitt beat writer for the Pitt News, the student newspaper here. Last night against Northwestern, Pitt set a program record for most consecutive minutes trailing before winning, because they trailed for all of that game, save for the 6 final seconds.
Isn't that insane?
39-54 they trailed.
That
39-54.
That was amazing. And the funny thing is I was working on the rundown for the show today and watching. I had in my background here where this is where I kind of, do all of my work, and I had the TV on, and I would just peek, I just kept peeking back and forth. And, once in a while, I'd say, oh, they're creeping back. Xavier Johnson had a beautiful drive. I mean, to get it to Champagne for the dunk, I was just elated yesterday, and it was really exciting to win. What I'm not excited about, let's see if this propels them to play better. They're 3-1 a season, 1-0 away. Coach K's comments, and I'll just briefly read the quote here. And this came after their loss to Illinois, so it was tough that some people are saying, oh, he's just saying this because they're not playing very well this season. But Coach Case quotes, quote, I would just like for the safety, the mental and physical health of players and staff to assess where we're at. We're just plowing through this. He said, speaking about the sport is largely governed by an oversight committee. Quote, anything that's led by committee is not agile. People are saying the next 6 weeks are going to be the worst. To me, it's already pretty bad. On the other side of it, there are these vaccines that are coming out. By the end of the month, 20 million vaccine shots will be given. By the end of January and February, another 100 million. Should we not reassess that? See just what would be best, unquote, from Coach K. And for me, I couldn't agree more with his assessment. I disagree with when he decided to make the assessment.
Right.
Like if you're Coach K, anything you say about college basketball is almost gospel. Right?
That's it. I mean, it's literally, he says, the words college basketball, boom, front page news right there, just because it's Coach K.
He should have said at the beginning of the season, we should not be playing. We're not going to play. And even if maybe he did say it, but not this forcefully as he did yesterday, where we knew, right? We are who we thought we were. To take Dennis Green's quote, we knew we were going to be at this point. There's nothing new where it's just like this caught us off guard. But you tried to go on ahead and play, and maybe you just should have said, no, we're not playing. We're just not playing. Right, Ben?
Yeah. And again, I wholeheartedly agree with your point on the timing of it. I think, it's obviously it's Coach K, so it's going to be well worded. It's going to be well thought out, whatever he's saying. But the timing really was not optimal for the delivery of this very important message, right? It was because it instantly resulted in everybody saying, oh, he's just saying this because they lost their, second non-conference game, and when they've only lost like 6 or something non-conference games under Coach K, and they lost to, Illinois in pretty dominant fashion at home. I find it a little interesting, bringing it back to Pitt a little bit. Jeff Capel had a lot of the same comments in his press availability I want to say on Monday,
Mm-hmm.
before this game, before Coach K's comments, I'm curious, obviously, Capel, former Coach K assistant, former Coach K player, wondering if, maybe there was a little relationship there, if, K heard, what Jeff had to say and,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of built off that, which, I don't think is too outlandish. But it was a lot of the similar thoughts. It was, Capel was saying, look, when we shut the tournament down in March, cases were, maybe half of what they are now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every day is getting worse and worse and worse. And meanwhile, we're sitting here, we're getting ready to approach Christmas. And I don't know what to do with my guys because,
Mm-hmm.
they haven't been able to see their families. I'm not going to be able to send them home, because there's only like a 5-day break between our games. They play on the 22nd and then they play down in Durham on the 29th.
Mm-hmm.
So basically before and after Christmas pretty quickly. And, there's an NCAA mandated dead period of 3 days in between there. But, coaches around the country aren't going to allow their kids to go home because of all the issues, because of all the concerns with everything going on.
Yeah.
And so it brings it to the bigger picture of, I think what you mentioned in that Coach K quote is, where is the leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the problem with the leadership in the NCAA with college basketball, and even to an extent with college football, is like you said, like Coach K said, it's by committee. There is no one man. There's the president of the NCAA, Mark Emmert, right? Who we haven't heard from in months. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think we've seen Emmert. I don't think we've heard from Emmert since probably early spring, mid-spring, around the time when the tournament was canceled. Because there is most certainly a leadership vacuum at the top of collegiate athletics, and it's trying to be filled by university presidents and conference commissioners, people that really don't have that much total authority over the wide range of collegiate teams.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody in a almost commissioner's role for this sport, because right now there's just no leadership. And I think people like Coach K, who are viewed, like you said, as the kind of leaders, as the kind of spokespeople for this sport, are trying to make this known. But when they do, again, coming back to the point of, it wasn't the best time, it's important that this gets brought up. But I think seeing, kind of the context that Coach K brought it up in, it really hurt the message he was trying to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really unfortunate. And we're going to, hey, it sounds to me, all indications are they're just going to keep moving forward,
Yep.
and more games will get canceled. And, I guess on the bright side, yes, there is a vaccine that, people are going to start getting. The next thing that I think I'm going to be curious about is, outside of the frontline health workers, should sports and athletes be next in line? That's a tough one. I mean, I guess if you're going to pay for it, if you've got a deal with Pfizer and you want to buy them, yes. But even then, what does that look like if you're the country and you're like, Pfizer's like, hey, yeah, we've got to give all of the athletes the vaccine first. I don't know. It's going to be tough. I mean, I'd like to think they could just give it to everybody at the same time, but I guess we'll see. Thanks, Bo. Thanks. All right, coming up, we got family time. It's just my dad, but my dad, he's all into soccer. So we're going to get him on next to talk Champions League, MLS, and EPL. We got him coming up next. All right. BetMGM is a new online sportsbook that is taking over the online betting nation. Not only does BetMGM have some of the best odds on all the major sports, but they also offer some of the industry's strongest weekly promos. This week at BetMGM, you can get a free $20 in-play wager when you bet $50 or more on any live NFL game. And we got one tonight. Or you can get up to $100 in free bets in the free-to-play Pick 3 First Touchdown NFL Challenge. And as always, you'll get a $10 free bet in the Money Monday Club. But that's not all. Right now, BetMGM has a special signing bonus for the Props Network listeners. All you have to do is create a new account at BetMGM and use the code JustSport20 to get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $500. That's right. Just enter the code JustSport20 and up to $500 is yours in your bankroll. right? Your bank account. You must be 21 or over to bet online. Do you or someone you know have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER today. All right, so we're talking soccer. Maybe some of you want to talk soccer. Maybe some of you do not. Hi, Dad. How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Good day.
You got a
Nice
fresh
weather
cut?
here.
Nice weather?
Yeah.
Nice weather. All right. Yeah, we got mid 45s. Not bad. Let's first talk about the Champions League. What, you know, did you enjoy most watching it over the past, 4 days of games? I know there's a break and then they play some more. Then there's another break and they play some more. What's your recap from Champions League?
Champions League was pretty exciting. Had some very good games, and some surprises. Man, U went out. I guess they're in kind of a disarray. I don't know what's going on there. And I'm surprised that Inter Milan went out as well. But there were some some good games, exciting moments.
Yeah.
Real Madrid had a good game yesterday, and they have victory. And so they're advancing to the knockout phase.
The only thing I think obviously that marred the game was the racist comments that, caused the suspension of the game between PSG and Istanbul Başakşehir. Başakşehir, if I said that right. I just can't believe we're still at that place in sports and in this country that we still have these issues. But that would be the only thing that I would say marred what in otherwise was a great tournament. I mean, you had a lot of drama and it was exciting.
Yeah. FIFA got a ways to go with educating a lot of the officials because you got a lot of various cultural issues at play when you have so many different cultures involved in the game. And so the referees need training. They need sensitivity training and sessions to bring them up to speed on what to say and what not to say and how to, advance the cause of racial equality in the sport. And I saw the unity of the players, which was very impressive, that they decided because of the offensive statement towards the coach that they were going to walk off the pitch. And I think that unification there was, like I said, very impressive.
And the thing is, Dad, I should have said in the opening remarks, but you are a referee. You ref soccer. And in my mind, I'm wondering how you get to a point where the conversation is that heated that you would make a statement like that, one versus maybe referring to, if you're talking about a player, just using the player's number. But it just seemed like I don't even understand how they got to that point. I don't know. It just was bizarre from the little audio that I was able to hear.
Right. The fourth official, I guess, hearing all of the comments coming from the bench.
Yeah.
He overreacted. I mean, it was a racist statement, and he shouldn't have done it. And so, him trying to point out the Cameroonian coach, I forget his name, Weibo, I think was his name.
Yeah.
Trying to single him out as the one who was doing the dissent that would cause the team to get the card. He inappropriately identified him. The other thing is the referee coming over should have pulled the fourth official aside, away from where everybody was, and then asked him and directly speaking to the referee to identify who was involved in the dissent.
Mm-hmm.
That probably would have been a more appropriate action to, get everybody away from the fourth official and then call him aside to speak to him directly. So that didn't happen. And, it's a negative scar on the officiating staff and what happened. But now it's a point of learning. So everybody got to move forward with dealing with that. And like I said, FIFA needs to take charge and to have sensitivity sessions and training for the officials.
I wish you could have just been there. You could have just been the fourth official. We would, it wouldn't even have happened.
And you know what's interesting now with all this Brexit stuff happening is
Yeah.
how are they going to pay the English officials? You know, are they going to pay them in euros, or they're going to have to convert the euros to pounds? And that means that the UK officials, they're going to be losing out, you know, on the conversion. They're going to be getting less money. And, oh, man.
Yeah. A lot to think about.
Right.
Last week, moving to the EPL, we talked about the London derby that I mistakenly said it was a Manchester derby. Now we've got Manchester United versus Manchester City. We've got Manchester United at plus 335. We got the tie at plus 300. And Manchester City is minus 130. What are your thoughts on the game? Who do you have?
United is in they seem to be in a turmoil. Now, I think the players will show up and play, but City has, I think, an edge there in coming in, that they're looking to show up and get 3 points so they can move up and then, you know, move up in the league standings. So I think the edge is with City. And the turmoil going on with United may play into some of the players, you know, not wanting or not being coming to the game fully invested in trying to shore up their record. And there's some weaknesses, I mean, within United. Some of the defensive players just not seem to be up to what might be expected of them professionally. And so it's going to be a good battle. It's going to be a good game. I'm hoping for not a tie.
Me either.
And City to advance, City to come out with the W.
Pogba's agent saying the star needed to leave the club is quite a shock to, like you talk about the turmoil. And it comes at a time when Manchester United they've got 19 points. They're 1 point ahead of Manchester City. They sit in sixth place in the English Premier League standings. You know, it's just, it is surprising that there's so much turmoil on a team that seems to, you know, at least on paper, still have had some success this season. Next game, Everton-Chelsea. You got Everton at plus 325, the tie at plus 300, Chelsea at minus 30. Of course, I want Chelsea to win. I mean, I'm still bummed out. We went all the way to London and Chelsea wasn't playing at home, but at least we got to see them on the road. So I am not complaining anyway whatsoever.
Right.
But who do you like in that game?
I like Chelsea's chances. Of course, Everton hasn't been involved in the Champions League. So, you know, they got fresh legs and all coming into it. Chelsea, on the other hand, has been involved and they're moving on in the Champions League to the knockout phase. But I like Chelsea's chances. I think they've been playing well, and I like the way they're moving forward with their squad. So I give a nod to Chelsea.
Nod to Chelsea. Everton is ranked 9th in the EPL standings with 17 points. Chelsea is 3rd with 22, 2 points behind Tottenham and Liverpool. Let's come back across the pond. We've got the MLS Cup final between the Columbus Crew hosting the Seattle Sounders. Seattle's 90 minutes away from possibly winning their 3rd title in 5 years. And just to recap, that was an amazing win by Seattle over Minnesota United to score that game-winning goal in the 93rd minute. A header by Gustav Svensson was just it was just amazing. It was just a beautiful game. And then I kind of wanted to see New England with Bruce Arena as a coach continue their Cinderella run in the Eastern Conference. They were the 8th seed. 1 game away from the MLS Cup final, but they lost to the Columbus Crew 1-0. Who do you like in the final?
Yeah, I will echo what you said about that game between Seattle and I'm drawing a blank on who they were playing.
Oh, see, yeah, the Seattle Sounders and the Minnesota United
Right,
FC.
right. The
It's tough to
Loons.
remember.
How
It's
could I
too many
forget the
words.
Loons?
It's too many
It was the
words.
Loons.
Too many words. It's just out of control.
Yeah, that was quite a game, though. That was real. I watched it all the way, and like you said, those last-minute goals, Raul Diaz and Svensson with that header at the end. Man, that was real impressive.
3 goals in 18 minutes.
Right.
All in the second half, obviously, was crazy. But in the final, we got Columbus Crew at plus 175, the tie at 205. I don't even understand why the tie is in there. There's no way a cup final is ending in a tie. So that shouldn't even be there. And then we have the Seattle Sounders at plus 165.
Yeah. I'm taking Columbus. It's in Columbus.
Yes, it is.
And yeah, I like that defense with Jonathan Mensah, a fool, and I forget the other defender, but I like that squad. And they got Zardes up front, and I forget the other guy's name, the attack player, but there's Santos in the midfield, and I like their chances. At home, I'm going with Columbus.
You're going with Columbus. And this is their first time in the MLS Cup final. Well, first time since 2015, excuse me. I didn't want to say first time in general, but it has been a while. So it'll be exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. They had here in DC at the old RFK Stadium, they participated in one of the MLS finals, and we went to that game back. I can't remember the dates, but it was a while back. Columbus Crew coming here
back when the Marco Echeverry days.
Yeah, I think the final was scheduled for RFK way back when.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, should be an exciting game though. Should be exciting.
Yeah, most definitely.
The Seattle Minnesota game was the most exciting game of
the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah, it really was. And I'm sure, unfortunately, for Minnesota United FC, they got to go back to cold and snow and just stew in their defensive lapses.
Right.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay. American football, you got some good games coming up this weekend, too. Pittsburgh, Buffalo.
Yes, I am really excited. This is like when you get to the final 4 weeks of the season, like this is my favorite time to watch Red Zone is really like around 3:30, 4 o'clock, where it's just game after game, boom, 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 boom. And Scott Hansen is really working his magic. But then when you get into the final 4 weeks of the NFL, this is going to be great. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Good games.
And the Washington football team, of course, I will be remiss if we don't end talking about how exciting that was for Washington to beat Pittsburgh, although
that was something.
Yeah.
The first half, I was like snoozing. 3 downs on the punt. 3 downs on the punt. 3 downs on the punt. I'm like, what the? But the second half, it came alive, and I was happy to see Washington football win.
Me too. It was a good one. All right, Dad. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate you coming on. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh, it's always great for have some family time. I say it every week. My dad and brothers, they know soccer way more than I do. They've been watching it and fans of it for so long. I'm like the youngest one here. I'm like the newbie, but it's fun to talk to them. And then I do know some things, and I have been to some DC United matches and obviously the Chelsea match. Listen, that was probably one of the most memorable moments that I have had with my father in our lifetime, to just me and him in London on the side. We didn't just go to Arsenal at Chelsea. We literally, I'm going to put some pictures on our social media page. We were on the sidelines. We were, when there was a corner kick and you'll see a little yellow rope, we got to be right behind that yellow rope. We're not just in the stands. We were on the pitch. And that was just a wonderful time to spend with him. And 2 of my coworkers were there. The only crazy thing I'll never forget is before the game, our host said, okay, you get to watch from right here, but do you want to watch the first half or the second half? Well, my dad and I looked at each other and we said, well, we'll take the second half because we figured, okay, well, it'll be the end of the game. Maybe something will happen around the 90th minute. Both goals were scored in the first half, and we just sat there and just enjoyed watching the beautiful game, but no goals were scored. But I'm fine with that because I got to experience something that I never thought I would, and that was with my dad, and that was really exciting. So it was a good time. We have to go back. My dad wants us to go back because all of my brothers will plan a trip, I guess, probably in 2022 at this point. All right, my devil's advocate. It really isn't a devil's advocate because I can't imagine anybody that I would be talking to or would be watching in this day and age would disagree. But the U.S. women's national team, they've agreed to a settlement for a portion of their lawsuit against the U.S. Soccer Federation. They're getting unequal working conditions. The pay is not equal. They want equal pay. And I think they deserve it. When you look at the way that how successful they have been with their team compared to the men's team, hands down, they should maybe even getting paid more. I'm stumbling over my words. You tell me a time that you weren't watching the World Cup or the Olympics that you were not going into it saying that the better team was the women's national team and they went home with the gold. Happens way more than most of us ever. I won't say most of us more than we thought it would, but the U.S. women's national team are the dominant team. Yeah, a couple times Brazil. You'd have Germany. But I think in the end, we know that the women's national team is the gold standard in soccer around the world. So why wouldn't they have equal pay? And that's why I was like, I don't even know if it's really a devil's advocate. But then when I read some of the comments on Twitter of the vitriol towards the women, where it's just, why do you deserve equal pay? Some people saying they don't get it. I'm looking over the comments. I'm just not going to read them. Like, I just don't understand why we even bring this up. And I am happy to see that the Megan Rapinos, I always hate when I say the Megan Rapinos. I mean, bottom line is, you were just excited for the women's national team to get not just what they deserve, but it just doesn't. I just don't get it. I just don't get why it took a lawsuit for them to get equal pay. I just don't get it. But they're going to get what they should be getting. Alex Morgan, Julie Ertz, Carly Lloyd. It's about time. And it's a little too late. All right, sports you definitely, I can't imagine you don't care about because in many ways, it's not a sport. It's simply not a sport. But I can't figure out how breakdancing is going to be a sport in the 2024 Olympics. Can someone on here watching please tell me why you think breakdancing belongs in the Olympics? And that's all I wanted to say. Maybe I should have put that in devil's advocate. maybe I should have put in devil's advocate that breakdancing is a sport, but I just can't see it. Breakdancing cleared its final hurdle to be featured in Paris. The thing for me is it's dancing and it's called an art. An art is not a sport. I just don't get it. Everything that you read talks about music and hip hop. I would rather have found out that they're going to allow Formula One to be in the Summer Olympics, as the drivers are athletes, more than I would ever in my mind ever think that breakdancing is an Olympic sport. It just isn't. It just isn't. So I went long, and of course I said I was going to talk NBA futures. So I'm going to quickly go over that because I totally went against what I wanted to do with my rundown, because I wanted to get Dad in. I said 1 o'clock. We're getting in at 1 o'clock. But Bo and I had a lot to talk about and a lot of NFL to get through. But here are my teams to reach the playoffs, my top 8 in the East. I've got the Bucks, but yes, you can get them at minus 10,000, so you're not going to go with that number. But I think the Bucks, Nets, Celtics, Heat, Raptors, Sixers, Pacers, Wizards are my teams, my preseason predictions to make the playoffs. You can get the Wizards at minus 121 to make it, Pacers at minus 167. And after that, it's just bets you wouldn't take the yes at. But if you want to take the no, if there's a team in there that I would say, maybe not, I probably still stick with the Wizards. If you want to take no at plus 100, you get the 76ers at plus 500. But I also think in that order where I said, that's also my seeding. I think Bucks are 1, Nets are 2, Celtics 3, Heat 4, Raptors 5, 76 are 6. But I could see the 76ers having a great season and being the 2nd or 3rd seed as well. In the West, Lakers 1, Clippers 2, Dallas 3, Nuggets 4, Jazz 5, Warriors 6, Suns 7, Trail Blazers 8. I've got the Grizzlies out right now at minus 225. The Suns, I think adding Chris Paul for me is, and the fact that they went 8-0 in the bubble. No, it was a bubble. This is a new season, but I just think they're trending in the right direction. A team you didn't hear me talk about is Houston, because they're still up in the air. You go to some of the sports books, you don't even see Houston in there to be able to pick them in some of the futures and props categories. Go look it up yourself. You'll see Houston's not listed there in some of the team's futures. They are waiting to find out what's going to happen with James Harden, if he's going to get traded or not. That's what I think. That's why. If he stays with the team, boom, you put him in there. So if Houston's in there, ooh, that's tough. I think Trailblazers are out. I think as soon as Houston, if they keep Harden and he stays the whole season, I think the Trailblazers are out. Now, again, a team that maybe you could say, okay, they're not going to make it and you can get some good odds there. Maybe Nuggets. Maybe they had a magical run in the bubble, but there's not going to be the same when the actual season starts. And, and again, everything up in the air with COVID, there may be an issue. But you can get the Nuggets not to make the playoffs at plus 1,400. You can get the Jazz at plus 400. Trailblazers at plus 162. And there you go.
Let me give you one more hypothetical before we get out.
Bo's jumping in. Okay.
All right. If you want to talk yeses and nos, James Harden to get traded plus 400. You taking that?
Ooh. Yes, I'm taking that. I
Okay.
think that the fact that he was a no-show for the first 2 practices and he's just now taking the COVID tests and he's got to wait. What is it? He's got to pass 6 more
six
tests.
consecutive negative tests.
You know what? I vote that Harden is the first one that should get the vaccine and just let him practice. just give him the vaccine right now.
For all the benefit of Houston's small businesses, so to say.
Yes, because the thing is, if you think about what Houston is going through right now, that they're being, for lack of a better term, held hostage by Harden, who, Coach Silas is just like, I don't know what's going to happen. Steven's just like, look, I can take the test. Right. I'm sure this is not the way he wanted to have his first job start. But I think if you going ahead, hey, let's give Harden the vaccine, let him practice. Let teams see him play, which I don't know why they need to see him play. They know who they're going to get in Harden, and just trade him. The problem is I'm taking that number because I like the plus 400, but realistically, if I'm Brooklyn, I'm not giving up all of those young assets because then they don't have a bench. They just have 3 great starters, but they are giving up their entire future. And I think how surly, which I feel like he always is surly, that Kevin Durant has been when people are asking him about Harden. I just don't know it. I just don't see it working. I mean, Harden's not going to all of a sudden become a spot-up shooter, Bo. But Kyrie Irving's not giving up the ball.
Not quite the same quality of reunion as John Wall and Boogie.
No, not quite. Not quite. And I think Harden has the best chance if Wall and Boogie are dominant and healthy all season. Them against the Lakers, that to me is a matchup that I think they could beat the Lakers if they're healthy and they're at their peak performance as they were before they got injured. I would say most people would look at a Boogie, Wall, Harden lineup and say, woo!
Plus, Boogie's got the inside scouting report now, too.
Yes. They could win the West. They could win the West if they're healthy and they play well together. But will they do that? I don't know. All right, Bo, another good show. I want to thank my dad for coming on with me. Bo, with his great knowledge in college football and basketball. I've got 2 for you. I've got 2 trivia. One is a trivia question. One is a who, what, when, where. So I got the one from Wednesday. Where did Major League Baseball hold spring training during World War II? You got an answer, Bo?
During World War II, I'm going to go somewhere in the middle of the country. We'll say Iowa.
Wow. Okay, here we go. Baseball teams began traveling south for warmer climates during spring training as early as the 1880s. However, the federal government ordered the 16 big league teams in 1943 that conducted spring training east of the Mississippi River and north of the Ohio and Potomac rivers to curtail rail traffic during World War II. Teams generally favor colleges and resorts as venues for spring training, including Asbury Park in New Jersey for the Yankees, Atlantic City, New Jersey for the Red Sox, Bear Mountain, New York for the Brooklyn Dodgers, French Lick, Indiana for the Cubs and White Sox, Bloomington, Indiana for the Reds. Teams returned to spring training in Florida, Arizona, and California in 1946 after the war ended. So you were kind of right. They just made them stay local. That's what it was.
I was trying to guess like non-coastal, right?
Non-coastal.
Who knows? Maybe the Axis was trying to come in and bomb Major League Baseball, right?
Oh, you never know. December 10th, Thursday. Who, what, when, where? On this day in 1958, just 3 days before his 42nd birthday, American Archie Moore survives 3 knockdowns and floors Canadian Yvonne Durrell. I hope I'm saying that right. 4 times, including an 11th round knockout to retain the light heavyweight boxing crown at the Forum in Montreal. Moore goes to the canvas 3 times in the first round, but one of those is ruled a slip by the referee, and again in the 5th, Moore storms back and fells Durrell on 4 occasions, beginning in the 6th, and finishes him off 49 seconds into the 11th. It's the 127th knockout of Moore's career in 204 fights. Moore will hold the light heavyweight championship from 1952 to 1962, a decade as a light heavyweight champion. That's it for the show. Thank you very much. As always, remember, everything begins and ends with money. So I hope when you're putting in your bets, you win some and you thank Just for Sport for it. I really appreciate you joining me. I hope you watched and enjoyed, found it entertaining as you were watching live on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. And thank you for anyone that were listening via the podcast, as this will, be up for Monday. We got some fresh content until Monday that you can listen to. All right. That's it for now. Thanks to my dad again. Thanks, Bo. Ciao for now.